Hi, my fellow Singaporeans. Singapore declared its independence 54 years ago after emerging from 150 years of British colonial rule. The early citizens declared that the new nation will be established on the principle of democracy, accountability, transparency, with the rights and interests of Singaporeans guaranteed and protected. The right of citizens to express themselves, the freedom to say and write what they feel is right or wrong, to hear each other out, and the freedom to assemble. Justice and equality will be its guiding light, where every citizen is treated fairly and equally, regardless of race, language, or religion. Now, what we said at the beginning of our nationhood was that we have no need of any imperial masters, people whom we only to obey and not challenge. Singapore declared its independence from such political rule. The new nation and its citizens stood together and declared self-determination of its present and its future. The PAP won over the nation with such a promise. The founding citizens, many who were our parents, grandparents, or even our grandparents, had such hopes. They had such dreams. This vision pulled Singapore together. Everyone put in their efforts to build that society democracy promised. Now, what happened 2 generations later? After half a century of government by a single party, monopolizing every aspect of Singaporean lives, have we achieved a mature democracy, or are we still a baby? Do we see more transparency and accountability from the government? Do we see progressive political space? Or do we see more fear and insecurity? Do we see the Singapore citizens at the heart of our policies? Are the people happy with life in Singapore? Let's look at one case in point now. The government wants to increase GST by 2%. Why? All the finance minister would say is that generally future spending will increase and therefore country needed more money. He tried to blame increasing healthcare and aging population, but never talk about ways to reduce wasteful spending and investment losses his government had been accumulating. This government has been so focused on squeezing out every cent from anything it touched and has a proud record of eye-popping surpluses to show for it. And it still wants to increase the regressive GST by 2% across the board. As long as you buy anything, you have to pay the government its cut, no matter what goods or services you require. Now, why use such a blunt tool? If more money is truly needed, there are more effective tools a government can use, such as income tax, stamp, or estate duties. Now, why can't the government be more diligent in finding solutions and put the people at the heart of its policies? SDP has been proposing that GST should be exempted for basic essentials: rice, water, milk, school books, healthcare. Young families needed the most help and understanding since they face multiple pressures while bringing up children, who are the future of our country. As a strong society, we can play our part by allowing them to get some relief through lower GST contribution. We can definitely be more humane and compassionate to our fellow citizens who are in need. To make up for the shortfall, we can all offer to pay more GST for discretionary and luxury items that we occasionally reward ourselves with: jewelry, high performance cars, hotel accommodations. What is another $20,000 to the person buying his $1 million Rolls Royce or Bentley? In contrast, $20 of GST for milk and rice for a family on a $1,000 monthly salary is a lot. What about his family's childcare, healthcare, transportation, utilities, food, and other necessities of life? Is this too complex for such a well-resourced government? The government prides itself for creating the country's complex healthcare finance system. Is a tiered GST system too difficult? Too much work? This government rather makes work easy for itself by asking everybody to pay for everything. That is what I mean by not putting people at the center of its policies. The present government instead prefers to hand out GST vouchers whenever it feels like it, just so to remind you of your dependency and of their generosity and care. Surely Singaporeans deserve better than that. And instead of worrying that our inflation will shoot up by 2% and cause further hardships, the finance minister said earlier this year that raising GST by 2% will increase the country's GDP by 0.7%, almost 1%. Increase our GDP. Since our ministers use GDP growth to determine how much they earn, isn't that a clever way for them to increase their salaries? Inflating the GDP with your wallets so that they can pay that more to themselves. Clever indeed. Is Singapore, a democratic country, more informed than in spirit? Have we seen more justice and equality? Are Singaporeans better cared for? Now, some may say these democratic principles are too lofty and impractical. But let me remind you that our founding fathers and mothers had realized that these democratic principles were indeed important for our nationhood and well-being. They had lived through the days of colonial masters and had determined that enough is enough. This new nation of Singapore has to be democratic, and the interests and well-being of its citizens must come first. No more superior masters of any form. The nation is to be governed by elected representatives of the people in order to serve the people. Not royalty, not noblemen or aristocrats, natural or otherwise. In Singapore, we now have an overwhelmingly dominant party in parliament with a minuscule opposition voice trying to be heard in a politically hostile environment. With the PAP government having run this country for the last 54 years, it does not readily entertain alternative policy voices. Do we hear robust debate? Or we hear only one voice, a voice which is determined to ignore the wishes of the people, like the GST issue which was talked about early this year. A total of 55 MPs rose to speak on the GST issue, but nothing is going to change. Do you think this government cares? If your representative is of the same party as the government, and even though he may voice your concern on your behalf, your elected MP will still be voting along party lines. Do you think the PAP MP will vote against a PAP-sponsored bill? You need more alternative voice in Parliament so that your concerns can be heard, bills robustly rebated, and ministries asked to account for bad decisions. PAP MPs cannot prevent uncaring bills from becoming laws because they cannot vote against their bosses. Let SDP speak up for you. Let SDP vote for you when SDP is in Parliament. Help us to help you. After 5 decades of single-party rule, are our democratic values stronger or has it degenerated? Although democracy is the best political system, it is not natural in human society. It requires a lot of effort to keep it going. Left alone, it will degenerate to autocracy and totalitarian rule, where the strongest will dictate the will of the many in the community. Democracy is about having a voice in how we create our society, form our values, and align our priorities. Democracy is about making sure everyone in society has a fair chance and opportunities to better themselves. Democracy is about improving not only ourselves, but everyone in society. Everyone, for the many, and not just the privileged few. After years of running successful businesses, I was looking forward to enjoying the fruits of my labor. But life is more than working hard and enjoying its results. It is about making sure that society cares for the least of us, for the weak and voiceless. It is about leaving behind us a society that is stronger and ready for the future. And that is why I have decided to step up and contribute towards the progress of democracy. And that is why I have decided to take this opportunity to speak up before our nation degenerates and deteriorates into something my grandparents had not expected. But I cannot do it alone. I also need you to claim back democracy, to stand up for democracy, to stand up for Singapore. Speaking up for Singapore's future is patriotism. We should not keep quiet and do nothing when democracy is being threatened. That is irresponsible. By our inaction, we will contribute to the ending of the Singapore dream our nation's founding citizens had worked so hard for. So, don't just stand there and watch. Take back Singapore for Singaporeans. SDP is a party that cares. SDP is compassionate. SDP is competent and constructive. Come alongside the SDP. Support the SDP. Do your part. Spread the word now. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.